So, Hannah, as you've worked with churches and pastors, do you have maybe a real world example that you could share with us? And obviously, not with any disclosure, nothing confidential, but where you've seen a church kind of navigate this well to help someone who's maybe in a legal situation or has, a legal issue, and yet they're still being cared for by the church in this area of sexuality.
Yeah. I've got three. They're quite short and very different. But it's important that I kind of talk to you about the three of them. So the first one was a long-term church member who was convicted of possession of indecent images of children. He didn't get a custodial sentence, but he was placed on the sex offenders register for 5 years. And in that particular church, there was robust support from the elders, from the pastor. They did everything by the book, as I've said. They engaged in they engaged with specialist organizations to get the advice that they needed to do the work well within the church. And then they were also to support him to engage in specialist counseling because they knew that they didn't have the capacity to work on that side of things. And I think that was actually a really good way of doing it, because I think sometimes as Christians we want to do it all. We want to take it all on, and actually to be able to step back and say, look, that is way beyond our capability, was a really, really good
Mm,
decision.
so
And
good.
then there was a very, very small church, again, in the last couple of years, who had somebody who was a convicted sex offender who actually came to faith in prison. So when he was coming up to his release, the prison service actually worked really closely with the church in the run up to his release to make sure that people were aware of what was going on and to really minimize the risk. Because of the nature of his offences, he's not allowed to be alone with any females, adult or child females. And also part of his licensing conditions in the community, that is the same. He's not allowed to knowingly and deliberately be alone with any females. So there are people within the church that are alongside him at services and events and community. He is allowed to attend community events, but he has to have a minimum of two elders with him the whole time. Um, and then another situation was an older Christian man who had quite a significant and lengthy history of sexual offending, included with children, including contact offences. And actually, he was advised that he could go to church and he could be part of a church community, but he had to go to a service at 8 o'clock in the morning, which is very much a quiet, contemplative service rather than a family service. And actually, that was very good because children don't attend that service. But he's not allowed to be part of any ministry involving children. He's allowed to go to men's breakfasts and men's groups. He can't go to small groups that are in the homes of families or any outreach where children are going to be present. So again, back to what I said at the start, it is very much about looking at these situations on a case by case basis and really assessing the risks to our own church community, but also the risks to that person as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that discernment piece is so important, and just walking with people, each of these different cases that you brought up.
Yeah. And I love in those scenarios, Hannah, that every church, you said it, they really did it by the book. Like they understood what was needed, what was required. And in their heart and desire to support that person and the congregation, they did it by the book. They faced it. They walked through it. And in those situations, they didn't just turn the other way or overlook it or ignore it. And unfortunately, we are hearing these horrific stories come out where, someone who was at a camp year in and year out, and everybody had some weird vibes and suspicions, but we all just, well, that's just, so-and-so. And they're like, well, that's where we've gotten into trouble, when we just kind of act like, well, we all know each other and it'll be fine. And what I hear you saying is, no, we face these situations head on with grace and truth. We do what's required of us to keep them and the congregation safe. And if we do, there is a way that we can care for both, and we can help this person find the support they need while still creating a safe place for our church to worship and come together around our faith. And I think that's my encouragement to pastors, to say there are things we can do to face this and help people. And then, like you've said so well, Hannah, throughout this episode, if you run into a situation that is particularly sticky or messy and you're not sure what to do, just acknowledge that. And in humility say, we're not the right place right now to help you through this because we're just not equipped. And that would actually be a gracious thing to do for both you and for that individual.
Yeah, but it's a very hard decision to make, isn't it? Especially, like I said, when we want, our heart is in helping people and walking alongside people in difficulty.